The next morning, when Kazu walks into the classroom, he notices Rinchin sitting quietly by herself. As he passes by her without a word, she tilts her head slightly, a confused look on her face, clearly unsure what's going on. Kazu makes his way over to Tachibana and says, "Hey, I checked out that site you told me about." Tachibana leans in, curious. "So, what do you think?" Kazu sighs, the weight of everything finally sinking in. "Honestly, it made me realize just how clueless I've been." Suddenly, Tachibana bursts out laughing. "Well, yeah," he says, grinning. "Of course there are some extremists in any fan base. That's just how it goes." Then he leans in with a serious look. "So, what are you gonna do about it?" Kazu responds calmly. "I've decided to put some distance between me and Mizuki-san from now on in real life and in the game." He lowers his gaze. "After all, that marriage was just in-game. In reality, we live in completely different worlds." Kazu continues, "I can't let a simple video game, or an otaku like me, end up causing trouble for Mizuki-san." He takes a deep breath, then adds firmly, "So I decided I'm going to stop talking to her completely." Meanwhile, Rinchin sits at her desk, quietly puzzled. Since yesterday, Kazu's been acting really strange. He did say hi that morning, but something felt off. Did I do something wrong? She wonders. Rinchin sits quietly, her thoughts a mess. She has no idea what could cause this sudden change. Across the classroom, the boys start to notice the troubled look on her face, yet somehow, even in worry, she's captivating. One of them whispers, almost in awe, "She looks so beautiful right now. I'm going to burn this moment into my memory." From his seat, Kazu glances over too, catching that same expression and feeling a pang of something he can't quite shake. The moment their eyes meet, Kazu quickly looks away, unable to face Rinchin. She tries to approach him, clearly wanting to talk, but before she can get a word out, Kazu blurts out an excuse. "Ah, sorry, the professor's calling me." Then he rushes off without looking back. Later, when Rinchin asks if they could have lunch together the next day, Kazu apologizes again, saying he needs to study. Later that day, when Rinchin logs into the game, Kazu logs off the moment he sees her. No words, no explanation. Frustrated and confused, she stares at the empty screen, wondering why he's avoiding her like this. Left alone in the game world, she quietly sits down and starts fishing, her thoughts swirling. Did he not mean it? When he said it didn't matter who I was in real life? She whispers to herself, trying to make sense of it all. Back in class, Kazu looks around and notices Mizuki-san is already gone. Just then, Tachibana calls out, "Hey Kazu, we're heading to karaoke. Wanna come?" But Kazu shakes his head and replies with a small smile, "Sorry, I'm heading home today." Tachibana and Seiku exchange surprised glances as Kazu quietly walks away. Kazu keeps telling himself that staying away from Mizuki-san is the right thing for her own good. But even so, each step he takes to distance himself hurts more than he expected. As he walks alone, lost in thought, a can suddenly rolls up near his feet. Then a voice calls out, "Hey, mind giving me a hand with that? My hands are kinda tied right now." Kazu picks up the cane and opens the door, calling out, "Hey, you dropped this." But the moment he steps inside, someone grabs him and yanks him in. Caught completely off guard, he stumbles slightly. Standing before him is Rinchin. For a second, the room is silent. Neither of them says a word. Then Rinchin finally breaks the silence and begins to speak. She looks at him and says softly, "I just want to play games with you again, like we used to. I want us to get along better." After saying that, her voice trails off and she goes quiet, waiting. Kazu doesn't meet her eyes. He turns his gaze away. "I'm sorry," he says. Rinchin is taken aback by his sudden words. "Don't speak to me anymore," he says coldly. Her eyes widen in shock, and for a moment, she can't find the right words to respond. "I see," she murmurs quietly, the words barely escaping her lips. There's a brief silence that hangs between them, heavy and awkward. Then, with a deep sigh, Rinchin nods. "I understand," she says, her voice soft, almost defeated. On a rainy afternoon after school, Kazu stands by the window, watching the rain pour down in torrents. He sighs, deciding to wait a little while until the storm calms down before heading home. Just then, a figure catches his eye. A girl opens an umbrella, stepping into his view. It's Rinan. She gives him a quick glance, her face partly hidden under the shelter of her umbrella. The rain seems to make everything around them blur, but the moment between them feels sharp and clear. Their eyes briefly meet, but Rinan quickly looks away, avoiding his gaze. Without a word, she turns and walks off, leaving Kazu standing there alone in the rain. As he watches her leave, Kazu can't help but reflect. It's been a while since that incident, and Rinchin hasn't even logged online lately. Things have settled back into their old routine. They're just classmates again, no more, no less. Kazu finds himself wondering if this was the right choice, if things should have stayed the way they were, or if it's all for the best. Rinchin keeps walking, heading home through the rain. Kazu remains standing, waiting alone when suddenly a girl approaches him. She calls out his name, breaking the silence. She smiles brightly at him, greeting him with a cheerful, long time no see. Then she asks if they can talk for a moment. Kazu, caught completely off guard, begins to sweat nervously. His mind races as he stumbles over his words. "W, who are you?" he asks, confused and unsure. The girl's expression shifts to frustration as she shakes her head. "How cruel," she mutters, clearly upset. Then with a slight sigh, she asks, "Didn't you long for me, even a little?" Kazu blinks, clearly confused, and responds, "That doesn't sound familiar at all." Realizing her mistake, the girl quickly corrects herself. "Sorry," she says, her tone softer now. "Just come with me for a moment." Kazu is taken aback, caught off guard by her request. "Why? Why did you choose me?" he asks, genuinely puzzled. She smiles mysteriously and replies, "You'll find out when we get there." Kazu sighs in frustration but ultimately decides to follow her, curiosity getting the better of him. As they walk together, the girl suddenly remembers something. "Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet," she says, turning to him. "My name is Koton," she adds with a playful smile. "You can call me Koton-sama." Kazu raises an eyebrow, questioning, "What's so free about that?" He begins to introduce himself, but before he can finish, Koton cuts him off. "I already know," she says casually. "You're a 17-year-old video game otaku, right-handed, and an only child." Kazu's eyes widen in shock. Wait, are you a stalker?" He stammers, taken aback by how much she knows. Koton laughs, shaking her head. "Don't be rude," she says with a playful grin. "You become something of a celebrity at school, you know." Koton smirks and adds, "You even get along so well with Mizuki Rinka. People have seen you two going to the cafeteria together." Kazu's face turns serious. "Is this all just about rumors?" he asks, his tone a little frustrated. Koton shakes her head, cutting him off. "There's no time to talk about that right now," she says, her voice firm. "We've arrived." Out of nowhere, Koton announces, "I've brought you here." Kazu looks around and spots Nanan, who immediately apologizes. "Sorry for calling you out so suddenly," she says, her tone sincere. Nanan then explains, "Koton told me everything." Koton nods, adding, "I overheard your conversation with Tachibana on the roof." Kazu looks taken aback, clearly surprised by Nanan's words. She continues, "I noticed you were shocked when you heard the rumors." Nanan then asks, "Have you been keeping your distance from Rinchin for her sake?" She pauses, giving him a thoughtful look. "Considering Reinan's future, it might seem like the best choice not to get involved, don't you think?" Nanshin looks at Kazu, her expression softening. "Please try to get along with Rinchin again," she says earnestly. She's been forcing herself to act like everything's fine, but you can tell she's in pain. She pauses for a moment, then adds, "I know Reinan's idle activities are important, but more than anything, I want her to be happy as a normal girl, too." Nanan's expression turns sad as she speaks. "If this ends up causing problems for the group, I'll step in," she says, her voice filled with concern. "I just don't want Rinchin to suffer anymore." Kazu is taken aback by her words. The weight of her statement hits him hard, and in that moment, he realizes something important. He had decided to stay away from Rinchin for her sake, but he never once stopped to think about how she felt. Kazu's mind drifts back to the time when Mizuki-san tried to be honest with him. He remembers how he rejected her, thinking of her as nothing more than an idol from a completely different world. But now a thought nags at him. Mizuki-san may have been just a girl who liked MOS, but another memory surfaces, Rinan asking if they could be together in real life too. The question lingers in his mind, making him wonder if he's been too focused on the wrong things. Kazu's realization hits him hard. He suddenly blurts out, "I'm such an idiot." Nanshin looks at him with a hopeful expression. "So, will you make up with Rinchin?" she asks. Kazu nods, determined. "I will, as long as she forgives me." Nanshin smiles warmly and thanks him. But Kazu, still a bit concerned, adds, "Just remember, rumors might start spreading again." Nanshin reassures him with a confident smile. "Don't worry, I've got a plan." As she thinks about it, a memory crosses her mind. She had been planning Kazu and Renan's wedding not long ago. But now she realizes that the timing isn't right for that yet. She calls out to Kazu, snapping him out of his thoughts. "All right," she says with determination, "let's start Operation Reconciliation." Moments later, Tachibana shows up, clearly confused. "Kazu, what's going on? Why'd you suddenly call us here?" His eyes land on Nanan and his mood shifts fast, his expression turning sharp with irritation. "What, Mizuki-san wasn't enough for you?" he snaps. "Now you're going after Nanan too." Kazu brushes off the jab, staying focused. He looks around at everyone and says firmly, "I've got a favor to ask." The group looks at each other in confusion. "Operation Reconciliation?" Someone asks. "What does that even mean?" Before Kazu can respond, Nanon steps forward confidently. The issue here is simple, she explains. Rinchin used to get along well with a certain boy, but now things have changed. She turns to Kazu and smirks. Your job is to fix that. You need to become one of Rinan's friends again. Kazu looks at Nanshin and Kotoman and says, but Mizuki-san doesn't really hang out with anyone else at school besides us. She actually seems fine being on her own. Nanshin shakes her head. You've got it wrong, she says gently. Rinchin might come off as distant, but that's just a misunderstanding. The truth is, she really hates feeling alone. Back in the artist green room at Star Mines, before all this unfolded, Nanshin had quietly asked Rinan if she'd made any friends in class yet. Rinchin, her voice soft, admitted she wanted to connect with her classmates, but opening up wasn't easy for her. I'm just not good at showing how I feel, she said, eyes cast down. Rinchin had also confessed that she wasn't as upbeat or outgoing as Nanon, and she worried that people wouldn't really enjoy being around her. Nanshin tried to comfort her, but Rinchin smiled softly and said, as long as I have you and Kazu, that's more than enough. As everyone listens in, Nanshin speaks up, saying she truly believes Rinchin would love to have more friends, she's just not great at showing it. Kazu looks surprised and admits he didn't know that. Koton chimes in, saying she always assumed Rinchin preferred being by herself. That's when Nanshin reveals her plan. Step 1. Get everyone to become Rinan's friends. Simple, but crucial. Kazu gathers Tachibana, Seitu, and Koton. With a serious expression, he bows deeply and asks them to be Mizuki-san's friends. He explains that if Mizuki-san has more people around her, it might not only help prevent more rumors from spreading, but also make her feel less alone. At least, that's what he believes in his heart. Seitu adjusts his glasses while Koton gently calls out Kazu's name. Then Shiana steps in, cutting through the moment with a sharp question, aren't you being kind of convenient right now? She reminds Kazu that it wasn't long ago he said he'd never speak to Rinchin again, and now here he is asking them to be friends with her, just so he can patch things up with her himself. Kazu is stunned into silence. Then, unexpectedly, Tachibana breaks the tension with a smirk and asks, did you seriously think we wouldn't be all in on this? Kazu blinks, caught off guard. Tachibana grins wider. I mean, who wouldn't want to be friends with Mizuki-san? Stakov adjusts his glasses again and adds, the real question is, are you okay with us being her friends? He explains that ever since Mizuki-san began spending time with Kazu, something about her has changed. Her expressions become gentler, more open. That's exactly why they're interested in getting to know her too. Tachibana gives Kazu a confident nod and says, you didn't even have to ask. We're already in. Kazu is deeply moved by their kindness and feels a wave of gratitude wash over him. Nanshin then gently reminds everyone that Rinchin has closed off her heart because of Kazu's actions. She warns them that if they try to get close to her right now, she'll probably just shut them out. Kazu feels the weight of Nanshin's words. Koton, noticing his reaction, softly tells him that Nanon can sometimes be a bit blunt with her words. Tachibana then suggests, should we start playing online games to get closer to Mizuki-san? Koton thinks for a moment and wonders if there's a better way to approach the situation. Kazu explains that Mizuki-san specifically distrusts guys in online games, so that might not be the best approach. Suddenly, Seitu speaks up, catching everyone's attention. With all eyes on him, he confidently shares that he has a solution. Adjusting his glasses, he says, there's a practical and reasonable way to handle this. He pauses for a moment before adding, the key is to become anyone's friend without fail. During break time, Kazu holds up a walkie-talkie and says target is in position. Nanshin's voice crackles through, roger that. We're ready over here. Kazu pauses, then asks, wait, why are we even using walkie-talkies? Nanshin casually replies, it adds to the vibe. Makes it feel legit. Tachibana chimes in, plus, those are mine. And let's not forget, we practiced all of this yesterday, remember? They go over the plan one final time. Everyone, except Kazu, is set to approach Mizuki-san in the courtyard. Of course, she'll be caught off guard. That's exactly when they'll hit her with a simple, direct line. Please be our friend. And that's it. No overthinking. Tachibana raises an eyebrow, a little surprised. Can't believe Seitu came up with something so straightforward. Nanshin just smiles and shrugs. Sometimes keeping it simple really is the best move. Seitu chimes in, saying that most people would find it hard to turn down a direct approach like that. He adds that the courtyard during lunch break is the perfect setting. It's always packed, which means plenty of people will see them openly showing their friendship with Mizuki-san. Seitu explains that this way, people will start thinking, oh, that guy everyone was talking about, he's just one of her friends. Then he turns to Kazu and reminds him, he still needs to apologize to Rinchin properly. Kazu, a bit uneasy, asks if that's the real reason he's the one staying back and watching instead of joining in. Seitu confidently declares that the operation has a 100% success rate, and he wants Kazu to see it all unfold with his own eyes. With that, the group moves into position. In the courtyard, Mizuki-san sits by herself, quietly eating lunch, while other students watch her from a distance, captivated by her presence. Suddenly, Mizuki-san hears her name being called. It's Seitu, Koton, Tachibana, and Manchin walking up to her. Manchin steps forward with a smile and asks, "Do you have a moment?" Watching from afar, Kazu starts to panic. Sure, the plan sounded flawless on paper, but now that it's actually happening, he's worried things might not go as smoothly in reality. Mizuki-san glances at the group, a bit anxious, and asks who Manchin brought along. With a cheerful smile, Manchin replies, "They're my friends. I wanted to introduce them to you." She starts with Tachibana, who's clearly nervous, sweat on his brow as he fumbles his words but manages to say, "It's a pleasure to meet you." Next up is Seitu, and just like Tachibana, he's drenched in sweat. Noticing this, Manchin chuckles and says, "You look kinda nervous there, Seitu." Then she turns to Koton, who steps forward with a warm smile and says, "You can call me Koton-sama, if you'd like." After the introductions, an awkward silence falls over the group. They all stand there stiff as boards, smiling way too hard. From a distance, Kazu watches the scene unfold, instantly picking up on how awkward his friends look. He starts to worry. If he can feel the secondhand embarrassment, how must Mizuki-san be feeling? The longer he observes, the more uneasy he gets. This is turning out even more uncomfortable than he imagined. Mizuki-san looks completely caught off guard. Then Koton nudges Seitu gently, signaling him to speak up. Avoiding eye contact, Seitu glances away and quietly says, "Would you be our friend?" Mizuki-san pauses for a moment, thinking it over, then quietly nods in agreement. From his spot in the distance, Kazu watches closely, still unsure. Is she really okay with this? He wonders. Before he can dwell on it more, the group bursts into quiet celebration, clearly thrilled that she accepted them. Koton quickly moves to sit next to Mizuki-san, her face lighting up with curiosity. "There's so much I've been wanting to ask you," she says warmly. Tachibana, feeling a bit jealous, quickly pipes up, saying that Koton shouldn't keep Mizuki-san all to herself. Mizuki-san simply smiles in response. Nearby students start whispering among themselves, clearly surprised to see Mizuki-san surrounded by so many friends. Some of them express a desire to get closer to her, while others begin to change their opinions about Kazu, their earlier judgments starting to fade. Those who once thought Kazu was more than just a friend now realize he's simply part of Mizuki-san's group. Watching from a distance, Kazu feels a sense of relief, seeing that everything seems to be going smoothly. Manchin smiles and tells Mizuki-san that she's glad to see her getting along so well with everyone. She suggests that now might be the right time for Mizuki-san to start speaking to Kazu again. Suddenly, Manchin pauses mid-sentence, realizing she might have said too much. Mizuki-san, noticing this, immediately asks what she meant. Manchin hesitates, unsure of how to respond, but eventually says she only did it for Mizuki-san's own good. Mizuki-san, with a calm but firm tone, replies that she appreciates Manchin's concern but insists that she has nothing to do with Kazu anymore. She explains that she blames herself for trying to mix her real-life identity with her online one. She goes on to say that Ren and Mizuki Rinka are complete opposites. Mizuki-san adds that it's only natural for Kazu to feel disappointed in her because of that. Mizuki-san admits that it hurts to remember, so she decided to let him go. Manchin notices that the look in Mizuki-san's eyes is the same as before, a sadness she couldn't change. Suddenly, Mizuki-san says she needs to get ready for 5th period. Koton tries to stop her, but Mizuki-san firmly insists it's better if they just end everything here. As she walks away, it becomes painfully clear. The emotional scars Mizuki-san carries go far deeper than anyone had realized. Tachibana awkwardly suggests, "Maybe we can try again tomorrow." But Nana quickly shuts that down. "No," she says firmly. "There's nothing more we can do." She goes on to explain that in Rinan's current state, it doesn't matter who reaches out. No one will be able to get through to her. The only one who can save her now is Kazu. Kazu watches Mizuki-san walk away, something heavy stirring inside him. Suddenly, he calls out her name, loud and clear, stopping everyone in their tracks. Mizuki-san freezes mid-step and slowly turns around. It's Kazu. With all eyes on him, he shouts, "I'm sorry. I'm really truly sorry for everything." Kazu admits he was too caught up in what everyone around him thought. He never once stopped to think about how Mizuki-san felt. He confesses that while she was reaching out, trying to get closer to him, he pushed her away, selfishly, without even listening to what she had to say. Kazu takes a breath and admits just how selfish he's been. He knows it might sound too convenient now, but there's something he needs to say. With his voice trembling, he stumbles over his words, then finally manages to ask Mizuki-san if they can be friends again. His friends, watching from nearby, are shocked. especially when they notice he bit his tongue in the process. Kazu keeps going, his voice full of hope. He tells Mizuki-san she should be friends with everyone, not just him, and have fun chatting about all the random silly stuff that doesn't really matter. Then, with a nervous smile, he invites her to go to karaoke after class. And out of nowhere, he blurts out they should go fishing together sometime too. The students around them blink in confusion. Fishing? Where did that come from? But Nanachin remembers. Mizuki-san had mentioned just the day before that she and Kazu had gone fishing together. Before anyone can say more, a teacher suddenly appears, startling Kazu with a sharp reminder that class is about to start. Caught off guard, he slips and falls hard to the ground. Everyone gasps. His friends freeze in shock. And from the crowd, Mizuki-san calls out his name, her voice filled with worry. Mizuki-san dashes to Kazu's side, tears streaming down her cheeks. She drops to her knees beside him, calling his name with desperation, begging him to stay with her. Kazu slowly opens his eyes, managing a faint smile as he says, "It's nothing, just a few scratches." Still teary-eyed, Mizuki-san scolds him through a trembling voice, telling Kazu just how worried she was, and with a small, shaky smile, she calls him a dummy. Then she softens. "But I'm really glad you're okay." Kazu smiles back, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I'm sorry for making you cry." He looks at her with quiet determination. "Everything I said before, I meant every word." Mizuki-san looks at Kazu and says softly, "I'd want us to get along in real life too, and maybe go fishing together more often." Kazu calls out her name with a grin. "Fishing's not so bad, but I kind of wish you'd come mining with me sometimes too." She lets out a small laugh, her smile gentle. "I guess doing that once in a while wouldn't be so bad either." Suddenly, Kazu's friends rush over to him concerned. "Are you okay?" they ask. As they walk with him to class, they compliment his efforts, clearly relieved. It's clear, Operation Reconciliation was a success. Afterward, Kazu gets scolded, but since he promised to fix the flower bed, he avoids any punishment. Back in the game, Rinchin asks him with a playful smile if it's okay for her to say that she's his wife. Kazu looks confused and responds, "Isn't it obvious since we're married?" Rinchin smiles brightly, saying she's glad. Kazu grins at her, noticing her face turning red. He reflects for a moment, realizing that being able to play online with Ren again has been good for him too. Just then, a voice calls out to them. A man steps forward, announcing that he has finally found them. Kazu looks confused and asks Rinchin if the man is a friend of hers. She quickly shakes her head, denying it. The man introduces himself as Sturman Griff. From his level, Kazu can tell he's just a beginner. Rinchin questions the name in disbelief, then her eyes widen as she realizes that Sturman Griff is actually Nanachin. Rinchin points out that it's Nanachin's cat's name. Kazu raises an eyebrow, questioning the strange name and noting that the voice doesn't quite match the character. Rinchin then tells Nanachin that she should have sent a message instead of surprising her like this. Nanachin responds that she wanted to show up unexpectedly to surprise Rinchin. Rinchin, however, replies that she was scared instead. Nanachin then turns to Kazu and asks if this in-game character is really Rinchin. Kazu asks if it's her first time seeing Ren's character, explaining that this is what Ren looks like in-game. Nanachin, surprised, reminds Rinchin that she once said she's the same person both online and in real life. Rinchin hesitates and asks if she really said that. Nanachin confirms it, pointing out that Rinchin is the complete opposite in real life. As Nanachin stresses over the difference, Rinchin suddenly declares that they should start hunting right away, adding that Nanachin needs to get used to Black Plains. Nanachin hesitates, wondering if she'll even be able to defeat monsters. Kazu reassures her, saying they'll help her. They begin exploring together, with Kazu suggesting they start with easier mobs in the area first. Suddenly, Nanachin spots a beast monster and exclaims, "Who's that little guy? He's so cute." Kazu, confused, asks what she's looking at. Rinchin explains that Nanachin doesn't share the same tastes as most people. Kazu quickly warns Nanachin that the mob is too strong and advises her to keep her distance. However, Nanachin ignores him, hugging the beast and calling it cute, saying it's playing with her. In reality, the mob is trying to eat her. The beast strikes, and with one blow, it defeats her. Sturman Gessen has been defeated. Nanachin sits down, feeling ashamed, and apologizes. Rinchin reassures her, saying it's okay since it's her first time, and that it happens to everyone. Kazu suggests they focus on leveling up with easier targets. Later, Nanachin gets attacked by small creatures, while Kazu and Rinchin watch her struggle. Kazu can't help but think about how bad Nanachin is at video games, while Rinchin has already wandered off to go fishing. Out of nowhere, Nanachin asks Kazu if he wants to get along better with Rinchin. Caught off guard, Kazu asks why Nanachin would bring that up out of the blue. Nanachin suggests that the most important thing Kazu can do right now is to close the gap between him and Renan by calling each other by their names. Kazu is surprised, but Nanachin insists that it would definitely make Rinchin happy. Kazu hesitates, asking if Rin is okay, since it's just one extra syllable. Nanachin explains that using someone's real name instead of their online name gives a completely different feel. With her bold in-game avatar drawing closer to Kazu, she firmly commands him to call Rinchin Rinka. Then she announces she's going AFK for a bit as she logs out. Kazu reflects on how even the sound of her logout beep seems to mimic her voice. Suddenly, Rinchin asks if Nanachin has gotten better at the game. Kazu replies that she still has a long way to go. He wonders if calling someone by a different name actually makes a difference. Hesitantly, he tries calling her Rin-Si while asking how she likes her curry. Embarrassed, he feels awkward about switching up how he addresses her after calling her Ren for so long. He also worries about Nanachin overhearing. Trying again, he reminds her that they have home economics tomorrow. Rinchin corrects him, saying they don't. Kazu stumbles, asking if she can always see a seagull flying past. Rinchin looks confused and asks where. Realizing he's struggling, Kazu quietly admits to himself that he can only call her Ren. Rinchin notices his behavior and confronts him, saying that if something is wrong, they should talk about it. Kazu sees how she's trying to face him directly and realizes he needs to change. Apologizing, he asks if he can call her Rinka from now on. Rinchin is stunned. Holding her face, she says she can't believe he'd suggest something like that and that it feels so sudden. Kazu asks again if it's okay, and she reminds him that it's obvious since they're married. He nods and calls her Rinka. Her face lights up with excitement. Kazu then adds that she can call him Kazuto as well. She softly asks if he's sure, then calls his name several times. Suddenly, she jumps at him, hugging him tightly and calling his name again. She tells him she loves him so much. Kazu gently pats her head and tells her that from now on, he'll be there for her, just as she's there for him, as both friends and spouses. Out of nowhere, Rinchin calls out to Nanachin, saying it's time for her to come out. Nanachin laughs and asks, "How did you figure it out?" Rinchin guesses that it was Nanachin's idea to use her real name. Surprised, Nanachin asks, "How did you know?" Rinchin smirks and says, "Because I doubted such an idea would come from Dense Kazuto." Even so, Rinchin adds that she's happy about it. She says it feels like they've grown closer and it's a special feeling. Nanachin interrupts, saying that Kazu can call her Nana too. Surprised, Rinchin suddenly dashes off, calling Kazu an idiot, tears streaming down her face. Since that day, the six of them meeting for lunch had become a regular thing. But today, Rinka calls out to Kazu, pulling him aside by himself. As Kazu looks around, clearly confused, Rinka guides him. He asks if they're even allowed to be inside the building. She nods with a mischievous smile and says, "Exactly, that's why it's our little secret spot." Opening her lunchbox with a bright smile, Rinka tells Kazu she made it just for him. She teases him about his usual habit of just eating boiled eggs, saying it didn't seem healthy at all. So she decided to bring him a proper bento. Proudly, Rinka announces that from now on, as his wife, she'll be making his meals every day. Kazu, practically glowing with excitement, thanks her and eagerly asks if he can dig in. She warmly tells him to dig in. As Kazu takes his first bite, he's blown away by how good it tastes. Every side dish is perfectly made. While savoring each flavor, it hits him. Rinka must have woken up extra early just to prepare this bento for him, even with her packed idle schedule. The thought leaves Kazu feeling a little guilty, wondering if he's even worthy of all the effort she's putting in. Out of nowhere, Rinka looks up and shyly asks if she can make a request. Without hesitation, Kazu tells her she can ask for anything. Blushing a little, she asks if he can do the ah sound. Kazu freezes, totally caught off guard. "Wait, you mean the ah sound?" He stammers. She nods sweetly and Kazu starts panicking inside, wondering if that's really something friends just casually do. Kazu's mind instantly flashes to a horrifying image of Takabana asking him to do the same thing, and he visibly cringes. Seeing his reaction, Rinka hesitantly asks if he doesn't want to do it. Kazu quickly reassures her, flustered, explaining that he's just shocked, not unwilling. Smiling, she asks him again to make the ah sound, and this time he nervously complies. She gently feeds him, and with his mouth still full, he beams and says, "Ish good." Rinka smiles warmly and keeps feeding him, encouraging, "Come on, have some more." Kazu does his best, but eventually waves his hands, laughing awkwardly, wait, I can't eat anymore." Rinka freezes in surprise, staring at him, then mutters to herself, wondering if this is what people mean by marital fatigue. Kazu blinks and asks what she's even talking about, realizing Rinka is having one of her usual random outbursts. Meanwhile, Rinka reflects to herself. Even after all these years of being married, Kazu still gives her butterflies. She smiles softly, thinking how he's the only one she ever thinks about, even if it feels a little unbelievable sometimes. Kazu quickly explains, "I'm just full, that's all." Flustered, Rinka pouts and tells him, "You should have said that sooner." Suddenly, a noise echoes through the hallway. Kazu freezes, his heart racing, and asks, "What was that?" Panic sets in as the sound grows louder. Then it hits him. It's Ishimatsu-sensei, the PE teacher. Kazu's face pales at the thought of being caught. He knows the punishment would be brutal. 1,000 laps, easy. Without wasting a second, he urgently whispers to Rinka, "We need to hide now." They scramble into a locker, crammed together, as Kazu anxiously wonders if Ishimatsu-sensei is about to burst into the classroom. Rinchin softly whispers his name, her voice barely audible in the cramped space. Pressed so close together, Kazu feels his mind spiral. This situation couldn't get any worse. Nervously, he prays she won't do anything that will make noise and give him away. Rinchin meets his eyes, smiles a little, and gently teases, "Your heart's beating so loud." Flustered, Kazu quickly fires back that her heart is racing just as much. Rinchin gigbles softly, mentioning how warm his body feels pressed against hers. Completely overwhelmed, Kazu blurts out that he can't hold it in anymore. Face turning red, Rinchin shyly pleads, "Be gentle," and just then, Kazu lets out a huge sneeze, blasting them both right out of the locker. Rinchin jumps, clearly startled by what just happened. Kazu quickly apologizes, trying to explain that the locker was so dusty he couldn't hold back the sneeze. Rinchin, still trying to process everything, looks at him in surprise. Just as the tension starts to settle, a cat suddenly appears, causing Kazu to jump in shock. The noise is coming from the bell on the cat's collar. Rinchin picks it up and asks, "Isn't this Sturman Griff?" Kazu, curious, asks if it's Nanachin's cat, and Rinchin confirms, explaining that it seems to have run off again. She suggests they take the cat back to Nanachin. As they walk, Kazu hesitantly asks if Rinchin had said something earlier. With her face flushed red, she brushes it off, saying it's nothing. Kazu is left wondering why she seems so upset.